Often in our society today, some believers find themselves being taught or believing that following Jesus will solve all of their problems. I mean, like Jesus is this main factor for following Jesus is that they want all their problems to go away. Maybe it's they want their sickness of their child to be gone, or they don't want potential debt, or no conflict in the workplace. They think that following Jesus will cure all of their worldly problems. And now we know that there are many good things that Christ brings, but also as followers in this journey of faith, we know that it's not an easy one and is not free of problems, and that this is false. We've experienced suffering ourselves, and we often find ourselves in difficult circumstances, situations we can't avoid, and most of the time, situations we didn't do anything to cause. What often results of this is anger. We're angry at, why, God? Why am I in this situation? Why me? I love you so much, and I'm committing my life to you, but why is this happening to me? And this anger, it produces temptation to complain about our situation, complain about others that are harming us, or often it goes farther than temptation, and we're tempted to even doubt God and why he's doing these things in our life and what's his reasoning. When we look at this, we're wondering, what should we do in these difficult circumstances? Why is God doing this, and what do we do because of it? Let's just say today that some of you are suffering or in a difficult circumstance. I know this is not hard to imagine because we've all been there, or it's going to happen soon, and this is something that happens to us often. Maybe you're struggling because you've been in the same position in your workplace for about 5 years now. You've worked so hard and you've done all the great sales and you're on top statistically, but your boss overlooks you because he knows that you would do it anyway because of your values, because of your Christian values. You approach situations with hard-workingness and with peace and grace and kindness, and you're working hard and putting in extra work. And he knows that whether he needs to spend more labor on you, that you do it anyway. And you're getting fed up with it because it's been 5 years and you're in the same position with no recognition, all because of your values that you're implementing in your work. If being a Christian has got you anywhere, it's been more time in the office and less time with your family in the church or serving outside. It's hard and you're in a difficult situation. Or maybe it's not work. Maybe you're recently retired and you're focusing more attention on your kids and your grandkids. Your daughter is older now and she has 2 kids of her own, and you want to invest in their lives and to grow them as followers of the Lord. But your daughter sets limits on how often you can see them because she doesn't want them to be pressured into faith or pressured into Christianity. She doesn't want them to go to church or to pray because she wants them to make their own decision when they grow up. This is hard for you because you're obediently trying to serve the Lord because you believe that growing kids up in the Lord and in the church is important, and it's what we're instructed to do as followers. Your daughter doesn't want your children to hear about Jesus, and you feel like you're in this wall where you can't share and you can't invest in your own family. You want your children to experience this in the most mind-forming parts of their life and grow up in the way of the Lord, but it feels like there's nothing you can do and you don't know how long it's going to last. We're going to see today what we should do in these difficult circumstances. That when we're surrounded in these difficult situations, that we're called to surround ourselves with patience. When it seems like suffering and trials are what's all around us and it's going on for so long, we're called to find ourselves and pursue patience and endurance through these trials. These past few weeks, we have been going through the book of James in a series and trying to cultivate a Christ-like culture. And to continue the series, we're going to see how our attitude should shift to patience in our trials, and we're going to look at the believers in the book of James and specifically what James told them to do in their difficult situations. What they were experiencing was persecution and oppression from rich non-believers. They were persecuting the Christians in the church and withholding their pay as they were laboring for the Lord, trying to strengthen the church. They didn't know why this was happening to them, and they were tempted to lash out in anger and to complain. The obedient believers were just longing for justice, for the Lord to see them, and because of this, they were angry for what was happening. James recognizes their oppression and it shows that he sees it's happening, and he gives them encouragement through the word and commands them in a call to patience. I want us to see today that God is calling us too to patience and endurance in our difficult circumstances. We're going to look at the why. What's his reason for challenging us with this difficult command, something that's hard to do, and how can we implement this practically into our daily lives? Hopefully we can leave encouraged and equipped with how to shift our attitude and behavior when we face these deep times of suffering. To see James specifically calling the Christians to patience, we're going to be in James 5, 7 through 11. If you have your Bibles, it's the last chapter in the book of James, and it's James 5, 7 through 11. Keep that open. The scriptures teach us that the reason we're to patiently endure trials is because the Lord is in fact coming, and that's what we're going to see James write about. And he also states that this coming is near. Also, to encourage them, he provides them with an illustration of a patient farmer that actually relates to the Lord's faithfulness in this time. Verse 7 and 8 read, "Be patient then, brothers and sisters," which is referring to the Christians, "until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against one another." Just as the farmer we read about can do nothing but wait for rain to come, we can do nothing but wait in our difficult circumstances with patience. And just as the farmer can do nothing to force the hand of God or to force rain to come down to yield his crops, we can do nothing to force God to bring us out of our situations, but wait. With James' use of the farmer, the audience would have thought back to the scriptures, back to the early times, the scriptures they have, which we would see as Deuteronomy 11:14. It's where yet again the farmer waits on the Lord for the Lord to bring rain, and the Lord does bring rain. This is increasing their confidence that the Lord will deliver them, and that he sees them, and that he has been faithful in the beginning, and he is faithful to them now. While we wait for the coming of the Lord, while we endure our trials, we should be patient. We should be patient with others and how we treat them. The Lord has been faithful in the beginning to watch over the farmer and his crops, all the way from Deuteronomy, and then we see the illustration in James, and now we still believe it, that he is faithful, watching over those who are being oppressed for their faith, specifically the believers in James. Maybe for you this looks like loneliness. You're a student, and you're about your 4th year in high school, and you're ready to graduate, but your friends that you've had for all 4 years are starting to leave you out of things. And when you question why this is happening, they say that you're judging them. And you know that it's not judgment. You know that you're not judging them. If anything, you're judging yourself for how you're acting. But you're trying to take your faith seriously and live out the Christian life. And by doing this, you're not engaging in the things that you believe are sinful that they're doing. You still want to be friends, but they're accusing you of something that you're not doing. Or maybe this is simply a lie for them to leave you out of every activity, but how do you communicate that to them when they're accusing you of something? It's a difficult circumstance, but you endure. You endure through this, and you wait through it, and you're patient with them, and you're clear with them because this is what you believe the scriptures commanded you. Your attitude, it's not what they expect. And they see your confidence in how maybe she really wasn't judging us, and they look up to you for it. They realize that you weren't judging them at all because of your patience and how you treated them and your endurance through this lonely time of life. It brought glory to the Lord because you were patient with them. We know this is important, and we've seen patience commanded, but now we have to ask, how is this possible, and how can we implement this in our daily lives? The scriptures give us practical steps and guardrails, specific things that James says in the next text that we're going to see how we should approach this without complaining, without grumbling, and that we should avoid talking about our situations in a complaining manner, and only in ways that glorify God. Verse 9 states that, "Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door." This audience was facing the temptation of turning their struggles against one another. They wanted to complain about the rich who were oppressing them, and they wanted to complain about their circumstances and how it was unfair to them and what was the Lord doing because they're just trying to strengthen the church. They were in this difficult circumstances, and they wanted to complain. We today would relate this to venting or debriefing about our problems. But however, James uses this command to display 2 things by relating to God as judge. First, that they can be encouraged because God does see them, and that he sees them, and he will come and judge their enemies. and he is looking out for the injustices and the people that are oppressing them. But second, this is a call for them to recognize their behavior, how that when they do judge, the God will judge them for complaining. And that it's a combination of these things that stirs them on to patience without complaining, to avoiding this. In our culture, we've created this complaining habit. It's been normalized, and we treat it as venting in order to slander people who are hurting us. Instead of doing this, we should trust that the Lord sees us and that the Lord is judging our enemies and that he sees where we are. Maybe it's your small group here inside these church walls. Instead of using this space to commune and to talk about the things and how giving glory to God, you're using it as a community to air out all your problems and all your sufferings. And you're complaining and slandering about the people who have hurt you in your circumstances. You're treating this special gathering as a gossip session. But you decide, I want to stop complaining. I want to commit, and I don't want to complain and or slander about these people that I don't think it's fair what they're doing to me, but I'm not going to bring this in and complain about it and just to receive pity from others. So you come to your small group, and instead of doing this, you pray for your oppressors, those who are oppressing you, and you forgive them. And in this group, your group is now transformed because you have people beside you, people to help you endure your trials with patience rather than venting about it to them and they're just sitting and listening to you. You can bring your problems to light without slandering others because you recognize that God is going to judge how we speak about them. However, James does not stop here with the specifics. He provides an example for them to follow, or more so, he explains how they can look up to the heroes of the faith, the prophets, and specifically Job. Verse 10 and 11 say, "Brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy." A common tradition of this time, which the audience would have known and which James would have known, is referring back to the prophets as those who experienced great suffering for defending their faith. They were the ones who prospered in the name of the Lord, and they wanted to bring the name of the Lord and to grow the church, but they experienced suffering after suffering, just like Job. This is contrary to what we talked about in the beginning, where people follow Jesus just to solve all their problems. God does not promise us a life free of suffering, and the prophets and even the people in James are a living testimony to that. Job did complain. He was not one who endured without complaining, but he is one that never abandoned his faith, and that is someone who we can imitate. Through all the suffering and all the things that he had to endure, he endured it patiently and treated others well. James is telling us that we should wait patiently for the Lord to intervene and to transform our situations as we never abandon the faith. We might doubt why this is happening to us, but we need to be strong and courageous like the prophets were and like James writes, that the Lord will intervene and bring glory when Christ is revealed. James is not always saying that suffering will be rewarded with prosperity. That is not what he's saying, but he's saying that there will be blessings for such faithfulness because our God is merciful and compassionate. This oppression that the Christians were facing is comparable to Christians overseas that are facing oppression and where they are today. It reminds me of Christians who are imprisoned or being tortured or don't even have the Bible because it's been banned, and yet they're still proclaiming Christ where they are no matter the cost. It's something in its persecution, and it's hard to see, but it's in these places where we see God performing miracles and Christianity is growing more than it ever has. And we have these witnesses to look up to, and I believe that we should imitate these witnesses because of their strength and their courage to share the gospel. It's worth that much to them, worth them to be tortured and imprisoned. It's in places where it seems to be the hardest that God is converting people to follow him. It is these laborers who persevere in their suffering that help expand the kingdom in the hardest of reach places, just like James writes, because they're being patient while they're in prison or while they're being tortured. They believe and they trust in the faithfulness of the God. Just like the farmer who trusted and who waited for rain, we have to be patient with people like our boss and not complain about him or slander his company or him. Just like the farmer who waits for rain, you have to wait and be patient with your daughter and your grandkids as you seem like there's walls all around you and you don't know how you're going to get out or share the gospel. Just like the farmer who waits for rain, you have to endure in the lonely seasons when you're just trying to take your faith seriously. You have to be patient with your friends and not cut them out of your life, but share with them Christ. Just like the farmer who waits for rain, persecuted Christians wait patiently for the Lord to come and to intervene and to bring justice. Just like the farmer who waits for rain, choose to patiently endure in your situations and whatever you're going through. And just like the farmer who waits for rain, surround yourself with patience when you're surrounded by difficult circumstances.